Well, hello there, and welcome back to Taking Flight. It's Megan Holly, and I am so just working to be into my grounded self for this episode, and that will make sense in a moment when I dive into it. So I'm hoping that you can take a moment as well to ground yourself down. If you are kind of just sitting and relaxing while listening to this, wonderful. If not, that's great as well. The information will still be very helpful, hopefully, for you, and maybe a little bit interesting, maybe something you haven't really tapped into yet. Today, as many of you know who've been in my community, I've talked about my walk with anxiety and just kind of my lifelong just roller coaster within this bubble that so many of us lovingly call anxiety. And so for many years, it felt like all that I could do would be to move through it, to get through it. And it was happening to me, and I had no control over it. And this stems back to being a child because, unfortunately, it has stemmed all the way back to being a child. And when I first started exhibiting symptoms and feeling anxious, I was really little, and probably around 7 or 8, at least from my first memories. And then it was just blown out of the water, just when my dad passed away when I was 10, because it just instilled fear and then even more sense of need of control and all of that. And so from that time on, it was just constantly, for lack of a better way of saying it, my little friend that was always with me. Friend is just a very nice word. But, sometimes that's the thing. We do have to kind of figure out a way to befriend the hard parts of life. And that's what this episode is about. So whether or not you've dealt with higher levels of anxiety or resonate with the idea of having anxiety, this episode will be helpful because this can really, when we get into it, you'll see that you can put it into your everyday life, even to help with frustrating moments, overwhelm, when you're just feeling just out of your own body and not grounded. This little protocol that I'm going to walk you through can bring you back down. And for me, has really helped for me to understand how the anxiety does affect me, how I can then affect it, and how we can become a little bit more friends. Because the thing that I've learned, if nothing else, in this kind of journey within it, is that when we continue to kind of battle and push against something, it just gets stronger. It just gets bigger. It's like the monster in the movie that you're feeding, and it just continues to take charge and take hold. But when we flip the script on it, it kind of cowers a little bit. And although you may not eradicate it completely, you for sure can find ways around it. You can move through it more eloquently. You can find grace within it and all of that good stuff. So I want to talk about my own anxiety protocol and something that I've added into my routine that has really helped me. And that is really just the use of breath, of igniting the connection between my mind and my body when I am feeling as if it is not my own. When I'm feeling as if all of the symptoms that pop up when you are feeling anxious are at the forefront of my mind and nothing else feels kind of safe, good, etc. And so just to kind of set the tone for you a little bit for what I kind of experience when I have anxiety, whether it's just, everyday underlying kind of more generalized, or when it's heightened, or when I'm kind of on the verge of maybe having a panic attack or something like that. My symptoms come out as really, really shallow breathing. And sometimes I feel as if that just is just going to be forever. Like I can't breathe, I can't catch a breath. And then a little bit of dizziness and all of this kind of comes up. So when you're out and about, and if you have any level of feeling this way, whether your symptoms are similar or they come out in different ways, when you're out and about in the world and you're kind of navigating this, it's really tricky because all you want to do is be present with what you're doing, be driving your car, be in that meeting, and all you're doing is being in your head, feeling these things happening. And whether or not you are realistic in knowing that they are taking you over and it is, something that you can get through, or in that moment, sometimes anxiety is really tricky. You really think those are like the last moments of your life, and in some moments, and that might sound dramatic for somebody who maybe has never had a full-blown panic attack, but it does feel that way. And so I just want to give you that little bit of insight, because for me, for most of my life, breath and just the natural existence of a human has actually scared me, because thinking about it and what it feels like and what it does and all of that actually would make me feel more anxious, because I never felt like I understood it. I never felt as if it was something that was safe, if that makes sense. And I know it might sound a little funny for somebody who's like, we all breathe. We just do it. Your body does it. And yes, but because it was such a kind of a struggle within me, it didn't feel like that for me. So my protocol is kind of the antidote to that, if you will, because I was able to use the thing that made me fearful, the thing that made me feel awful, the literal symptom that made me so just into my anxiety feel better. So my protocol is this. I was doing some research and I realized that obviously we hear this often, but our breath is very powerful. It is our life force. It is the thing that keeps us going, those brain cells firing, all of it. This is something we know. I am not a scientist. I am not a doctor. Also, let me use that as a little disclaimer that I am not those things. I am just somebody who has worked through this, my own protocol. I have lived with anxiety. I have done some research. I have done all that, but I am no expert by any means. This is my lived experience. So all of that to say is that when I was looking at this and realizing, okay, what can I do? It's so simple. It's within me. Breath is already there. How do I reverse this storyline and use it to my advantage? I was also doing research and realizing how much we can tap into kind of our vagus nerve, which is if I had to say, it's the thing that really can kind of make or break that fight or flight symptom, right? When we're feeling like we're flight or freeze, that's the thing that we need to kind of regulate to help. And the beautiful thing is we can activate it right through the roof of our mouth, which you'll see kind of where this protocol takes us, and it will make a lot of sense. So when I was looking up just different ways that I can kind of bring this into my everyday life, when I was realizing how genius our body is, which it's so genius, it's amazing, and realizing how simple, and I use that term loosely, simple, but really, truly, it is to activate and kind of ground the systems in which can create us to be up here or down here. I was just like, okay, we've got this. What are we going to do? For me, I also, when I was doing some of this research, I realized that some of it I was doing naturally already in this kind of journey to find more healthy boundaries in my life, better kind of friendship with my anxiety, all of this, such as humming. So when I was doing this research, I realized that sometimes I would hum quietly, just what you think of when you think of humming. I would hum a tune. I would hum a song. I would just hum a little, my own little tune, right? And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm already doing this. I just didn't know I was doing it. And it might be in a situation where I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable, or right before I was on a phone call. This was happening a lot. When it was like ringing, I would be just kind of a couple notes of a hum to kind of ground myself in. And I'm like, oh, this makes so much sense. And so when I started tapping into that, I realized that my safe space is the shower. I love a good, cozy, warm shower, especially in the winter when I need to feel more grounded and I need to kind of feel back into my body. I just love it. And so when I started putting these pieces together, like the humming, the fact that our vagus nerve, we can activate it through our roof of our mouth, and just all of these inputs, right? I was like, okay, wait, There's something to this. What can I create to make this be a part of my routine that not only is kind of a in the moment helper, like the humming, you can do that anywhere, but also something I put into my everyday life. So it's a kind of a preventative to keep my body realizing it's safe, it's okay, it's safe, it's okay, which used to be the words that I would mutter to myself in my head back in college when I was about to go into just a full-blown panic, like sitting in the classroom or walking across the quad, things that I did every single day, but still felt unsafe to me. So I start kind of piecing together, okay, my safe space, where I feel grounded, the humming, all of this. And this is my protocol. And so I would love to share it with you because I would hope that maybe some of it will click with you that you can use in your daily life, or you can create your own version, which would be my true dream, that you can create something that makes sense for you, kind of based off of what we chat about here today. So my protocol is this. When I'm in the shower, I work to use that as my grounding time, right? Of course, we're all checking off our boxes, washing the hair, doing the things, all of it, but it's also a safe space for me. So I have incorporated humming, gargling, and deep breath work into my routine. And what I have found is that I come out a different person. And now there are times when it is a little trickier to tap into this protocol, especially if maybe I've just been buzzing and I'm up here and all the things are happening. I'm way into my head and not just grounded into the proper energy. It can be harder to kind of do this, but the more that I do it, it's like a muscle. It's like a muscle at the gym. It's like the confidence muscle that I'm always talking about. It is something that can be worked on, build upon, and create better versions of. So what happens is this, and it's a little tricky to kind of show you, obviously, without being in the element, but I'm going to kind of walk you through what it looks like. So what happens is this. I usually do it about midway towards the end of the shower. And because I'm kind of already feeling a little bit more in my body, right? The water itself has allowed me to feel sensation that brings me down a notch. And if we're on autopilot, we won't do that. So how can you help yourself be in the moment of like, I feel this water on my skin. It is warm. It is maybe a little tickly. It is, right? Adding adjectives into this thought process helps us become more in tune with what we're actually doing versus just going right through it and being on autopilot. So that's the first thing. I take a moment to literally the surroundings. The ground is hard, right? The shower door is clear and it is still kind of cold, right? There's these little like things that we can do to snapshot that. So once I'm kind of doing that and I'm aware that I am more grounded, I start to do this protocol, which starts with humming. Just humming, pick a song, pick a tune, do whatever, play with it. Let your voice be, more loud and abrupt or quiet. There's so many different just vacillations that you can create within just this humming situation. Play with it. See what feels good for you. I just hum. I don't have an exact amount of time, but I would say 30 seconds to a minute. I'm just humming it out. Usually it's the tune that's been stuck in my head all day that gets to be the star of the show in this little situation. But whatever it is for you, wonderful. So I start there. Then I start to take in water and I gargle because the sensation of the water bubbling on the roof of your mouth starts to activate and just kind of bring down that vagus nerve. And it's, oh my gosh, we all know that water is calming. So this is a whole other way of thinking about water being calming. This bubbling sensation, just the feeling of that matched with feeling grounded, the humming just starts to continue you down the road of going down a notch, of feeling a little more calm in your body. Then once I do that, I stop and I take a few really good deep breaths. And what I find is typically the first round of doing this, the breaths are a little more shallow. My lungs, my rib cage, it's not opening up as much because likely maybe I have been kind of stressed and, hunched up or whatever it is that happened throughout the day that's keeping me feeling a little bit small and tight. And so the first round always feels a little sticky. Once I take those 3 to 5 really nice deep breaths, I start over. Hum, gargle a handful of times, and then move into the next part, right? Breathe it out again. Breathe it out again. And so I do this for a handful of minutes until I just really feel really great. Sometimes I do it longer, sometimes I do it shorter, but no matter how it kind of plays out, and you could do it in different order. There is no perfect storm with this. This is just what works for me and kind of the trajectory of how I feel my body come down, and really just look around and say, hey, it's not so bad. You're feeling good. You're feeling safe. You're feeling grounded. Quick little funny story before I wrap this episode. I was traveling with family on my husband's side of the family, and we... when you're traveling, there's a lot going on. There is extra people. There's just the travel itself that's stressful. And I know that I needed a moment. I just knew. I was like, I need a moment to myself. So I went to kind of freshen up before we were going to go to dinner, and we had a family wedding that weekend. And I was just going to kind of do my little protocol. And I was in the bathroom and I'm doing my thing and I'm doing my gargling and my humming and all of that. And when I got out, I realized that my mother-in-law had come in and she was kind of giggling. And I was like, what? And she was like, what's the gargling and the humming and all the things? And I'm like, oh. And so I'm honest to a fault. And I'm like, oh, I just had to, the stress of all of you people, just being silly, of course. I needed a moment to myself. And this is kind of what I do to ground myself. And I'm talking through the whole thing. And it was just really funny because, you're in your own little safe space. And of course, being in a hotel with, lots of other people that are going to be in and out and all this stuff, like the chances are your safe space is expanded a little bit, whether or not you want it to be, versus when you're at home and, in your true safe space. But it was just really funny. And it was a moment where I got to share what I do. And we all got a little bit of a giggle out of it because it does feel a little bit silly. It feels a little bit funny, but that's why I wanted to bring up that story to remind you that things that are new or different, or especially when there's like this vocal situation, they're a little bit outward, they're not inward. We're not just journaling. We're not just, talking ourselves through a hard moment. We're doing something. It can feel silly and it can feel weird, and let it be weird. There are times when I hum a song and it just sounds so funny. I'm literally laughing at myself in the shower. And guess what? It's part of the process. It's part of the medicine. We know that laughter is medicine. So have fun with it. Embrace it. Who cares, right? Who cares? Let your family know. If you're going to be humming and gargling loud enough for them to hear, then let them know. If you're not, whatever. Keep your little secret and safe space your own. But all that to say is, don't let allowing yourself the things that you need to feel good and better in your body keep you from doing it just because somebody might hear it, or it feels a little bit weird, or it's unknown to you. Because I promise you, for me, it has been a literal life changer for knowing that I can tap into this. And the more that I do it, the more that I have preventative measures for staying more grounded in my mind, body, soul, and spirit. And some of these things I can bring into everyday life. Like I can go hum, or you technically can gargle really anywhere. You have a bottle of water, you can chug a little bit of water, gargle in your car before you go to a meeting. But I would say, to me anyways, the most obvious is like the humming and breathing. You can take that anywhere with you. And I have. I'm driving sometimes and I'm humming my head right off my body because I'm stressed about going to this thing, and it's tangible. It's here. It's literally in my body. I don't have to do anything, grab anything, go anywhere. You can bring it anywhere you want. So I really hope that this gives you something to think about, a little something to chew on, a little something to breathe about. Because, again, it's been something that's been such a game changer for me, and I just don't want to gatekeep, and I want to help us all feel like we're not alone when we're going through the things that make us feel like we need to hum, gargle, and breathe a little bit more, and then also give us these tools and resources and ideas to make whatever it is we want for our own protocol. So hopefully this makes you feel grounded. Maybe go give it a try today. Let me know if you give it a little whirl and how you liked it, or if you added your own spin onto it or found a different way of kind of bringing it into your life. I would love to hear it. Until next time, stay grounded and stay good, my friends.